Hello, you're very welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is number 36. I'm Shane, that's Daragh.
How do you do?
We're two brothers from Ireland who love rugby. And we're going to begin the podcast with our traditional apology for the impromptu hiatus that occurred over the Christmas, which probably could have been anticipated a bit better when we could have given notice that we would have been, but I don't know. No, it was just work and we got
never
busy.
plan to miss podcasts.
No, we don't. We're planning on making them and resolving now that it's New Year as well to try and do a weekly one if at all possible. But failing that, obviously there will be a few instances where that's the case. But don't panic. We're back and ready to talk rugby again, and no better time really because it's just come out. We've finished with in the Rabo thing. It was derbies. It was 3 weeks of kind of the close knit kind of local contests, and they're lovely and good, but not really the bones of what we want to discuss on this podcast. So this weekend we have Champions Cup rugby returning.
Yes,
which is kind of a timely way to announce a return.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been, I suppose, an eventful enough month. I mean, we're going to go through the double headers, which I suppose are the big thing that happened over the Christmas. In terms of what's been going on domestically, it's this stories I guess will emerge as the podcast goes on, like Toulouse's run of form and like the domestic derbies over here in Ireland and across the Pro 14 where there have been some interesting games, but you know, we're not going to get into the whole Leinster thing and everything else. I think we're just mainly going to be looking forward to what is properly now a very consequential weekend of rugby, which for all of their intrigue could not be said over the last month or so.
No, probably not. It was said because you need a news cycle and stuff, but no, in earnest, this is where it becomes the business end of the season, because it's like obviously a lot of people cite things like February, the beginning of the Six Nations, as really the beginning of the rugby calendar, but as we've been pointing out, it's like, well, one thing that's happening this weekend is that Leinster are playing Toulouse. We'll both be there. That's a serious game, as was billed before Christmas, the 4-star clash, which is... It's the only game in European rugby that can live up to such billing, and so like there's that, but there are myriad other absolutely class games over the next 2 weeks to come, because it's just getting into that business end of the season, and who's still in it. There are a few surprises in terms of who's up there. Edinburgh have had a great run of form. Actually, Edinburgh and Ulster's double headers both going tremendously well, and unprecedented for both of those teams to be as in contention as they are at this point in the season.
Not unprecedented for 1-star Ulster, but still.
I'm talking about these teams, as in like the personnel who are playing now. They're relatively new, and they've both been progressing very well. There's teams like that. There are also teams like Racing who have nearly been there. They seem to be targeting Europe with a bit more like a serious part of their kind of overall scheme of their season is Europe now, because they've just nearly got there a few times. And same with Clermont. As soon as you kind of nearly get there, you want it even more. And they're looking infinitely more dangerous than they have done in a few seasons, particularly out wide. They're quicker. They do probably leak a few more tries than they have been doing in years gone by, but it's like they look properly dangerous, and in the context of their pool, they're all over it. So it's that they're well up there at the moment. But I think our layout, obviously, like, there's a lot of games to get through, a lot of things to cover. We do want to look back on what happened briefly in those double headers, but just kind of looking at both games together and seeing which teams are benefiting from that. And we think the easiest way to do that is just go pool by pool.
So we're gonna break down each pool sort of in numerical, in consecutive order, starting with pool 1, and we're going to talk about, you know, what's going on this weekend, what has gone on to get us here, and what's likely to emerge. We are, unfortunately for all those many English fans who have clubs that are out of Europe but still have to play some dead rubbers, we are going to have to focus on the games, the consequential games, the games between teams who might actually win this competition, or at least progress to the next stage, and what may become of those games. Unfortunate for some, but plenty of teams still in it, and hopefully we'll illuminate some minds on our way. We'll start with pool 1, which is Leinster,
which is our very own pool from this, our home pool in the context of this podcast. Just going back to those double headers.
I just start with the pool. I was thinking the table now ahead of this week, where obviously Leinster are playing Toulouse in Dublin. has Toulouse at 17 points, top of the pool. Leinster second place on 15. Bath and Wasps bringing up the rear.
5 and 3 respectively.
I was going to save them the embarrassment of reading their total.
Well, no, it's significant enough in that like Bath are on 5, Leinster are in second on 15, so Bath can only mathematically tie with where Leinster are now. So
it's not even relevant because they can get a maximum of 10 points from here, and 15 points is never enough
to get through.
So those two teams are out of it. It's all about Toulouse and Leinster.
Toulouse, which means it's all about this very weekend. Just bring up those double header lists there, because I'm just curious as to what happened in Toulouse. Toulouse beat Wasps home and away. The first game they had was against Wasps in Wasps, where they won 24-16, which was a good, like, they ground that one out and looked just stronger and better throughout, and then they did tear it up in what was a very pretty game, 42-27 in Toulouse. Wasps did fire some shots, but they did just look completely outclassed by what's becoming a very, very classy looking Toulouse team.
And then Leinster's doubleheaders obviously were against Bath. The first game was a scrappy affair. It was away from home. They only won 17-10. It was a bit of a once-off kind of game because of the mud.
I'm pretty certain, like, it happened in years gone by before they changed the layout. Some teams had to play in zebra and stuff, and those pitches are pretty bad, but I can't think of a worse playing surface than what Bath have going on in the rec this year. I don't think there's a worse one in the competition. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it was actually a curious sight to see James Lowe, who's normally very dynamic, very powerful, he had no confidence placing his weight on either foot. He had to stand on 2 feet, and as such was near immobile, which is like, maybe you want that as, like, I can't resolve that as being any better than a 4G pitch, which they should have there. If what seems to be the issue is that there's drainage and it's in a flood basin, but they need to get rid of that pitch because it creates anomalous games like this that you can't really read into.
I agree. Anomalous is the word. Leinster got through it, and it effectively meant the end for Bath, and then they did do a good job in the Aviva Stadium the week after, similar to Toulouse. No trouble, got their 9 points out of the 2 fixtures.
I did well considering that particular weekend there was storms all over Europe. It was weird, like there were other games more affected than ours, but the second half, certainly there were only 2 tries to the first half's 4, and like the Aviva was emptying. That's kind of the swirling kind of crazy weather did play a part in that, but they got the job done, which is what was expected, and what the spread was. Bath they had fired a couple of good shots. It was apt enough that it was Underhill and it was Lowe getting their brace of tries, because they are the potent factors in that team, and they were the ones that caused Leinster the most trouble. But
Leinster, to be fair, have they resolved those issues. They have looked good at home this year, but they have shown some weakness. And again, the key crux of this group now is going to be this match. We assume now that both sides will win on the last weekend, more than likely. Although English teams occasionally have a resurgent.
Leinster have more to do on the last week, having to go over to Wasps, I feel, than Toulouse with Bath coming there. But even still,
we're probably thinking that this is the game that will resolve what goes on. And ahead of this game, from Leinster's perspective, there are certainly some concerns. I mean, first of all, just the injury list now is cropping up in some key positions,
and the ban because of James Lowe.
James Lowe.
The one reference we can make to that Leinster-Munster game is that one net result is that James Lowe is now missing a couple of weeks, which this big fixture. And
another is that Johnny Sexton, for all of the talk of him being a scumbag, was injured by the Munster men and is gone as well. Robbie Henshaw, they say, might be back. They have thrown him in for these kinds of games before. I wouldn't be amazed if they did it again, and if he did come in and they were backing him, I'd be confident that we would see the great Robbie Henshaw. He always seems to deliver when he plays. But more than likely you're looking at a Leinster team without Henshaw, Sexton, without James Lowe, without Dev Toner is a big one as well. And I'm not sure what they're going to do in the back row as well as that. So for a team now that has, when we were looking at the Bath performance was one of the highlights of the year, and even the Wasps performance before that, a lot of the go forward ball that Leinster have been relying on, certainly in the back line, has come from Sexton's managing of things and then James Lowe's dynamism. Other players, we do have Larmour, and Larmour has been consistently good. Other players are going to have to step up in a big way. You look at the absence of Devon Toner. There's massive. Leinster have had such issues with the line-out. Leinster and Ireland both have had such issues.
As soon as you take Devon Toner out.
As soon as you take Dev, put Dev in, everything is solid. He calls the line-outs very well. He calls them in a very balanced way, and he's always this like emergency person who we can just throw to if things are going bad, because he's so bloody tall.
Indeed.
And without him, the Leinster's line out is a serious weakness. And then you look across the pitch, what did they do to James Ryan, the Toulouse boys? They did a hell of a job on him, marked him, won those contacts. Bath did a job on our back row earlier in the season, and Munster again got the Leinster pack on tilt in a big way, the whole Leinster team on tilt in a big way. So there are certainly concerns for Leinster, and certainly vulnerabilities that you might not have seen last year.
For sure.
And they're going against a team who have ambitions of winning this tournament, no question.
Their centres, the centres for Leinster have been an issue ever since Robbie Henshaw's been out, but now especially with Sexton down as well. I think defensively, Ringrose has a lot to do in terms of leading that now in the absence of them, be it Rory O'Loughlin who steps in, maybe Conor O'Brien on form is who I would argue, but it's a both of them are calls that leave gaps there, and Toulouse have been potent at striking through the middle, be it bringing Ches and Kobe in off strike plays. They've created space in those last few games. They can do damage in the midfield.
They work well off set piece. They move Colby. Colby is a man who takes two defenders at least to stop. He's just so jinky and he's so beautiful. But they move him they move him all around the pitch. He does, for a winger, like, he does a load of work. The guy must have an incredible engine. But they move him for strike plays into the centres and everywhere else. They also have Guitone, who runs brilliant tracking lines, is another very, very sharp attacker, and then you can list them off. Even Ramos now, who's been playing 10 for them for the last little while in the absence of Zach Holmes. The turn of pace on that guy is something else. They're very, very quick. The thing that they're going to have to do, that they're going to have to be thinking of doing now against Leinster, is winning contacts. That's what they did in France. That's their path to success, because that's where you get the tracking runners really ahead. You get offloads away. They're going to, it took a monumental effort. That is going to
be something that Leinster are targeting. This is why, in the RDS, which is where it is, which is going to be packed, it's going to be very, very noisy. That's where you've got to wonder where this Toulouse team are at in terms of their European pedigree, but the track record, their form guide is better than ours. Considering over these last few derby games,
they've gone away to Clermont and drawn, and that was a big game in the context of the Top 14 Masters 1 and 2. And they've gone away, Clermont in many ways are a comparable team to Leinster. It certainly was a comparable task, as much as Clermont are in the Challenge Cup because of last year's debacle. But they went to Clermont and they tied them, and now going to Dublin is not going to faze them. They've won twice away from home already this year. So as much as Leinster don't lose in the RDS, Toulouse don't lose full stop. And they're going to come in with a lot of ambition and power. But like with most of games, one of the themes of this sequence of podcasts that we've done has been that winning collisions is so massive in these big games. Just getting your body in the right place.
In the first 20 minutes, they're a good indicator as well as to where a team's at and where it's going to go. I find you can see that very instantly, and that's where intangibles like noise, like things in the stadium, do make a difference in that context.
I would say that it's certainly more important, as much as it is for Toulouse, probably more important for Leinster to get them right as well. First, for starters, just to stop Toulouse's offloading game, you have to stop them behind the gain line. You have to slow up their ball, and you do that by stopping them, by winning the contacts, by driving them back a bit. And the same is said with ball in hand. They can't get any kind of line speed up if you're winning the contacts and getting in behind them. Toulouse do have that sort of trump card of just, even if they do get knocked back, they'll just keep the ball alive, keep it quick, move to where Leinster aren't. They have that in them. Leinster do too, but without Sexton and without Henshaw and without Lowe, it's probably a little less likely.
And you have that fear at halfback as well.
I do,
which is a good point, because we've noted it for many seasons. Is just they're going to select Luke McGrath probably with Ross Byrne, which I don't think works as well as Gibson Park. Ross Byrne, you don't either, because Gibson Park's pass is a bit more forward. He's a bit quicker. I actually prefer the way he manages a game to Luke McGrath. I understand Luke McGrath runs better, comparable trail lines, but gets a load of tries. Is probably a better defender.
Definitely a better defender.
Is too slow a lot of the time, and Ross Byrne has a tendency to not be as flat as he ought to be, especially if he doesn't have a Kiwi halfback flicking passes in front of him to run onto.
It's massively important. It's massively important that, because we've watched, as much as Ross Byrne has improved, and that is a massive factor, because he has improved. We also just forward warning, we're shooting this Wednesday evening, so we do not have the teams as of yet. Teams will probably be up by the time this is uploaded, but we don't have the teams as of now. So we're sort of going on what are they going to select. I fear for a Leinster team with Luke McGrath and Ross Byrne because I've watched it a lot, and one of the things that it does is just sucks the oxygen out of Leinster's backline. Luke McGrath's a little slower than Gibson Park. He passes a little deeper. Everything is a lot harder. They struggle to work, and then you're leaving backfield players with a lot more to do to generate any kind of momentum. And again, if you have someone like Rory O'Loughlin at 12 who's just a functional player, you know, that's the kind of Leinster team that was losing games last year when the A team were romping it. It's those kind of formations that really did struggle in the Pro 14 just to get any kind of quick ball going, and it's massive that Leinster score tries in this game, because Toulouse, I feel, will
score 1 or 2 or 3.
It's, you know, and one of the things, like you say, they're going to pick Luke McGrath. I don't ever underestimate Leo Cullen and Lancaster's ability to not be conservative, and they have had many incidents of parallel thinking with us in the past. I think it would be a nice ballsy call, and they're not short on them, these boys, to put Gibson Park in at 9. I think it would make a lot of sense, just given that Ross Byrne's at 10.
And given that James Lowe's out anyway, so there's no actual conundrum as far as Fardy, Gibson Park, that kind of stuff. Well, Fardy and Gibson Park will probably be required with the absence of Dev as well.
Fardy will play, we know that. One of the other things is that with Rory O'Loughlin at 12, I'm going to give a shout out to Andy Dunn from Off the Ball. Some of you guys will know him, some of you guys won't. But he made a great shout about a month ago. I didn't get a chance to talk about it, obviously, because it was during hiatus. But he made a great shout about Jordan Larmour and Jordan Larmour's career, because he's been watching him in the backfield, and he's such a beautiful, explosive player. But he said that he thought that Larmour was a lot like Gordon Darcy in the way that a young Gordon Darcy, who was a fullback or winger, burst onto the scene. He was all footwork, he was all beat a man, and he had that super turn of pace that was massive. And then I think it was probably not until the 2004 Six Nations, he got put at 12, and then started to do
player of the tournament.
He was player of the tournament that year, because he was just standing guys up from 12. We talked about the value of putting Cheslin Colby in those middle sections, sometimes just tightening defenders up. It's so much more difficult to mark him off the field when he's doing that. And when you've got a guy like Larmour, who isn't actually, like, as good as he is in the backfield, he's not actually that much of a link-up man in the backfield. He's all about beating defenders one-on-one. I think it'd be a huge shout to throw that guy in the centre, and given the fact that we're exposed in that area, if in the absence of Henshaw this week, that would be another lovely ballsy call that I'd love to see the boys make.
It's interesting.
It has its defensive potential issues, but I haven't seen Larmour look too defensively weak yet. Like, it's not like Stockdale, where you've seen him miss tackles for all of his explosiveness. He's just not a particularly big guy.
Him get stood up on the outside by that Italian fullback in the Six Nations, Minozzi.
That's more like
quality, though.
He is quality, and that's more likely to happen in the backfield.
Yes, it is.
12.
But it's one that's like in terms of if you're English, then that's never going to happen, because a centre number 12 doesn't look like that. Damn it, he looks more like a Bentillo. But that's absolutely wrong. And in the context of, like, just it's a good little comparison, that Gordon Darcy one, because it feels like the game goes in these evolutions, and one way to make sure of getting around players like Bentillo, Jamie Roberts, that kind of mould of centre, is to put a pacey guy to make nightmares out of defending that channel.
And in the context of this week, it's one way to get your backline going, because the last thing that we need is just Gary Ringrose and whoever plays in the wing, if you put Larmour on one wing, and
which I suspect more likely to be the call.
I think it is more likely to be the call. I agree with you. And Larmour perhaps on the left wing, and then maybe Adam Byrne on the right wing with Rob at fullback.
I would be okay with that as well.
Well, you're hoping for. Well, I certainly would put Adam Byrne in, because you got Ross Byrne in his boot. You got to have that.
Be cross kicking towards Adam Byrne, but put him on Colby. It's if Colby's running.
Colby's going to be on the right wing though.
Yeah, but
I him on the left wing.
Yeah,
I never
for the cross kicks, I like that idea. I don't think we do it anywhere near often enough, just in terms of those matchups. Just for the vertically challenged, just put a massive receiver.
I'd still back Adam Byrne against Maynard, anyway.
Yeah. Maynard's played more at fullback though. He's like it just brings it more into the balance than it need to be. Sometimes.
I don't think they keep Colby in the backfield that much anyway, do they? For those kicks. I'm not sure.
I think they do for counter. I've seen him counter attack.
I'm not sure. But certainly they are going to have to play with their attack, because if what the percentage call would be like we always say when Joe Schmidt's about to pick a side, we can name it on the Monday before, or the Monday 2 weeks before, and that side that you would pick, the Joe Schmidt side, would be with Rory O'Loughlin at 12 and with Gary at 13 and Ross Byrne at 10 and Luke McGrath at 9, and there's a danger there of not actually getting anything going with their backline at all and not scoring enough tries. That said,
those kinds of games can be won by Leinster in a different facet entirely, when it's just the 8 doing the job, which happens a lot in Dublin, where teams that have quality packs still just get bullied and scrum time becomes an issue. And
when you're talking about as good as the Toulouse forwards are,
and
you're talking about, I would say, in Cian Healy's case, one of the best loose heads in the world right now, the best loose head over the last decade in the world.
Consistently,
comfortably, and then you have Tyg Furlong, who is the standout tight head
of this year,
of many of the last few years, and perhaps like the most explosive tight head you'd ever seen. And these guys, one of the things that Tyg has to be careful of is the clean out, though, because it looks like they're starting to watch that, and he is a man for flying into a breakdown.
Yes, he is.
But generally speaking, there's massive strength coming from the Leinster front row. You got Sean Cronin in there as well, who's extremely explosive. So you've got 8 really dynamic physical players who can do serious damage to the Toulouse pack. You're going to have Fardy and Ryan in there as well, so they're going to be attacking perhaps Ryan again. That's what they did in the first game. They sort of waded through all the fog of all the Leinster excellence and decided that Ryan is the key man to getting the go forward ball and snuffed him out, and that was brilliant of them. Leinster going to have to be leaning on other players. You want to see Fardy on the ball. Fardy's form has been a little bit so you need to see him on the ball a bit more. You need to give him a bit more responsibility, let him be that driver of go forward ball. And then the back row battle is anybody's guess. As good as Leinster's back row has been, form wise, I don't know how good they've been. And Toulouse, Jerome Kino and the boys are very, very good as well.
Well, against Bath was the first time I've ever seen Josh van der Fleer struggle for the physicality of a game and have to be removed because he wasn't doing well. That was Ed Bath in the Dublin leg of that. He was just being outplayed by Underhill across the board in the physical toll and in
the Dublin leg, the one that
Dublin leg. He got taken off because Dan Levy was
right, you're right about that.
Was at 6 that time, not 8, and then switched to 7 when Josh came off, and he was not, didn't look up for the physicality of it, which is very strange because I normally associate him as machine-like efficiency. So I don't know who they're going to pick in the context. I do think Conan will be at 8. Is Reece Ruddock in there? I've been questioning some of his form in the last little while, but in terms of physicality and go forward, he's a good option for 6.
I think it is probably going to be Conan, Josh and Ruddock with Levy on the bench, which is the same, I think, back row that played against Bath.
Levy started that at 6, as did Josh at 7.
Oh, you're right about that. Sorry, Levy was at 8. Sorry, he was number 8
for the first. It was strange selections, and that one was wrong in the context of the double header.
But Conan was right in the next game. It's another big job for Conan, but one I think he'd like. It's a bit more of a free flowing game. It's more Conan's pace. I agree entirely. So I think it'll be good to have him in there, number 8. That's resolved. And if I'm honest, as good as Levy is, I think Josh is just a little bit better, and I back him a little bit more. So he's a good man for disrupting. I tell you what, though, Jerome Kino could school Conan. That's another as good as
possibility. Like Jerome Kino's over there, and it's like he's such a quality player. And just even watching the way he's been playing the last few seasons, he's just like a lovely wine, maturing very well over in France, not getting too fat and just doing clever things.
Totally, he's not fat at all.
No, indeed, which is strange in the context of imports to France.
They're a non-French team, and it was thoroughly hilarious to see them rack up on a 39-0 win against the Fat Toulon.
Over Toulon.
And just evidence that everything that those rich boys have been doing is so wrong. I mean, this team, like, they do have Kino's their big import, but it's fresh and it's got young academy lads, and they're fearless, and they just attack all day long. That Cheslin Colby try towards the end of that game was unbelievable, with tap and go from starting in their own 22 on the left side of the pitch, finished by Colby with a spectacular stepping finish on the right side of the pitch. But that's the kind of thing that they do. They just do not let the tempo of a game die. No. So what you're going to see,
rarely let the ball die if they can help it as well.
So what you're going to see Leinster try and do, you might see, I like what Wasps tried to do over there is go blow for blow with them. It's like they'll score tries, we'll
score
make sure
tries.
that we score tries, and ultimately they were outgunned. Leinster might fear that. On one hand, they might go, Larmer at 12, Ringwell's at 13, we're going to go for these boys. On the other hand, they might go, let's control this game, let's play in their half, let's dominate them up front. Going to be tough to do that without a working line out. They're going to have to get their line out right. I would back their scrum big time to get the upper hand at least. Or to at least get parity, if not the upper hand. But other than that, the thing that concerns me about that tack is slowing it down and being ugly Leinster. Ugly Leinster exist as well. They have their moments.
Actually, it was one of the compliments of the run to the final last year and the win is that we got to see all manner of victories, grinding out over in Sandy Park against Exeter and just doing the 40 plus phases of pick and jams just because Exeter do that. So it's like we'll do that too, which is a lovely trait in a team. I haven't seen it quite as much this year because I think we're just being
that would be
less
last
effective.
Year's way. That's what we did to Scarlets. Like we play Scarlets and Scarlets Rugby and beat them at it. It's like it's a Ronda Rousey way of thinking about the world that can go very wrong. But and that's what I fear. Like they could do that against Toulouse, but they could go the other way and try and make the game about things Toulouse aren't necessarily great at, and try and make it a slogfest. The problem with that though is that Ross Byrne, like as much as I like Ross Byrne, he's no Johnny Sexton, and certainly if we were going to play that way with Johnny Sexton, you'd feel a lot more confident, but the game would become about him. It would be Sexton would be controlling every factor of what went on in that game, what Leinster were doing, where Leinster were playing, how Leinster were attacking, at what pace Leinster were attacking. He just dictates it all. And without him, if we're not going to be going free flowing hell at it, it puts a lot of weight on Ross Byrne's shoulders. It's a big test, ahead of a Six Nations selection with a dodgy Joey Carberry in Munster. He might be thinking of getting that 22 jersey. But it's definitely a risk. Any option is a risk. This is a brilliant game, folks.
Yes, it
if
is.
You haven't told
this is
already.
The game of the weekend, which is why we're spending an inordinate amount of time on it in the context of this podcast. But it has to be done not just because we're Leinster fans and that's the way it is, but also it is the 4-star clash as it was in week 2. It is again, and it's the only one in this whole tournament, and it is beautiful in the context of these pools because a lot of the other pools are either wrapped up or there's the one pool at Munster where they're all in contention somehow, but there are clear favourites emerging in both. But this pool is a 2-horse race, and it comes down to this weekend.
Before we wrap up on this Leinster, I'm not going to ask you for prediction because we don't really. I mean, what good is it? We don't need
point.
There's so many things to predict. There's so many different factors you have to predict in a prediction. How is a team going to play? Who are they going to select? What are they going to do? How's this guy going to perform? How's that guy going to perform? What's going to happen then ultimately?
Yes.
In this kind of a game, it's almost meaningless to just say Leinster will win. Or Toulouse will win. So what I'm going to ask you is, in the context of being Leinster fans, what would you go for? How would you try and beat Toulouse if you're a Leinster coach ahead of this game? What are you going to do? Who are you going to pick where? And how are you going to attack them?
I'm going to target them aerially with Adam Byrne and Rob Kearney and Ross Byrne's boot. That's certainly going to be a factor. I'm going to try and just pin them back and smash them with Gary Ringrose leading the line. Smash them way behind, disrupt them at scrum time, disrupt them at line out time if possible, and just kind of arm wrestle them, grind them out, try and get a 10-point cushion going into half time would be ideal in that scenario, with a capacity to score a few tries in the second half ideally, but making allowances for Toulouse coming and making a mockery of that and scoring a try whenever we score a try and ruining that whole plan. But still, I'm backing Leinster's nous to, in the context of that game, be the ones who fall over the line with the winning score. If it comes down to a 1-score game, I kind of back us to be the ones to nick it in that context. But I also think that's probably it's the safest option because it gets some of the big game players who affect the outcomes of these games are the likes of your Cian Healy's, your Tyg Furlongs, your James Ryans, your Dan Levy's if they're on the pitch, or if you're, it's getting that pack involved and just rectifying what was definitely a shock to them in Toulouse. Just how they didn't have it their own way.
And you would expect them to be geared up and ready for it, and that's probably the most determinative factor, because one of the things that can happen, I like the strategy, especially aerial. I think I would do that no matter what kind of game plan I was playing. I think you would involve some crossfield kicks to Adam Byrne and some up and unders to Rob, especially just because they're quite small. They're quite
their back three are pretty small,
and certainly as good as standards. Little Ramos is, or even I'm not sure if Zach Holmes is back or not yet. I don't think he is. Like neither of those guys I would back to be brilliant managers of a game in terms of if it comes down to that, the boot. But one of the things that can happen to a side that tries to slow everything down and pin an opposition back, like Toulon probably tried against Toulouse, is it can just affect your whole mindset. You know, it's like, all right, we're kicking deep for the corner, we're going to trot up slowly, then we're going to bash you back, and then Toulouse will just, apropos of nothing, just tap and go a penalty on their own line and just constantly try and be tempo and just catch you out and force you to move at their speed. And when you're planning on moving slower than that, it can be jarring.
It can be. But Leinster's flowy tempo is pretty quick as well. It's a slightly different kind of pace to what Toulouse tend to present a more frenetic picture than Leinster, which is quite flowy but is all the same quick when they're on it. And when they're flicking passes out, when they're going forward and feel good. That's why the first 20 minutes will be less about that, but that's where defence will be key to dictate our tempo in terms of proactively coming off the line, smashing them. Like kicks need to be the right depth so that we're making contestables out of them, so that like every time they go up to catch a high ball, they have to eat a Rob Kearney elbow to the face, which by all accounts seems to really hurt for some reason. So like, yes, they will have to play that kind of game first, get them stifled. So
it's all about physicality, like it's all about hitting them getting them in awkward positions,
bludgeoning, but like not to say that that's slow or being done at a slow pace, which is probably the impression I gave by that. But that game plan can be aggressive and quick too, and that's the speed we need to be presenting.
And finally, who would you go for at 12?
At 12, oh, do you know,
Conor O'Brien?
I'd be tempted for Conor O'Brien. I've been so impressed with that boy. He's big, man. He's actually big and strong and plays there. So it's like I like the idea of Larmour at 12. Like I like that idea
as a novelty,
but I'm not doing it against Toulouse.
Okay.
But I would, like, compared to Rory O'Loughlin or Noel Reid, who are the two more senior players who've been filling that role, they're not as impressive as Conor O'Brien in that shirt. Conor O'Brien is impressive at 12 or 13. He's an out and out centre. He's bigger than both of them. He's a better defender, and if he has Ringrose outside him, like, I'd be going for that, and it would be a big cap for him. But I don't know if that's going to be the call. In fact, I think it's going to be Rory O'Loughlin.
He's in the squad anyway.
He is now. Yeah, he wasn't before.
It's
some curious thing.
No, he just wasn't named in the original panel for Europe. And in order to, you have to re-register a player. Like, and there's only a certain limit of players, and you fill them all up with the players you want at the start of the season. And then if someone gets injured, you can replace them, or you can replace someone tactically if you want, I think. And it was Joe Tamani's place who he eventually replaced when he became injured. But you have to re-register players. They didn't bother doing it over Christmas for no good reason.
But he's been playing really, really well. He's one of the breakout players of this season.
It is a call,
in a position where we've had injury problems,
it is a call that is not out of the question for Lancaster and Leo to make.
No, it's true. He'd form, I think.
Yeah.
And like, granted, the last in the last outing in this competition, which was Bath at home, Rory O'Loughlin from 12 was man of the match and did have the best game I've ever seen him have in that 12 jersey. I've had my problems with him at 12 before, but that game he was all over the place defensively and offensively, so fair play to him. He'll probably, if that's the case, if they're looking at it that way, he retains the shirt from that one, but there's been a lot of rugby even since then, I don't know. I would be picking Conor O'Brien, but I'm not the coach, so.
There you go. Anyway, we're going to have to move on.
We will,
in the interests of getting this podcast done before dawn. The second pool 2, involves another of our Irish friends.
This is the one pool in which, because I listed out all the contenders as far as points, and the bottom, like in terms of pool points, so like Leinster are on 15, Toulouse are on 17 pool points, so they're obviously prime candidates to go on and win the tournament and get a good seeding. This pool is very, very strange because all of them are technically contenders by my metric, where I went down as far as 8 pool points, which is where Gloucester and Exeter are both at the bottom.
It's a fair,
and only 4-point gap between them and the top of the group, where Munster are at 12.
It's fair to say every single one of these teams could qualify.
Yeah,
certainly mathematically.
Yes,
they all could. They could all qualify in first. In fact.
I think it's only Munster though who could secure a home quarter-final.
That's probably true. That's probably true. You don't get home quarter-finals for less than 20 points.
Yeah, not usually.
Mostly speaking generally. But the pool at the moment, as it stands, heading into this weekend, everyone's played 4 games. Munster on 12 points, top that pool. Cast in second on 9. and our two English messers are on 8 points each, and third and fourth Gloucester and Exeter, that is. And this week you're going to see Munster playing Gloucester in Kingsholm and Exeter hosting Cast in Sandy Park.
And in the context of the double headers, they both took points off each other. They all took points off each other. Although interestingly enough, the English teams did it away from home, didn't they?
They did.
They both went away. Well, from home and beat the other.
Like it's one of the few firm stances I've been able to take in this podcast is that, contrary to all popular opinion, I don't really like Exeter. I find them ugly. And I find them very limited. For one of the top sides who think about winning Europe and win trophies, they're so limited outside of their front eight. They like to control, like the Leinster, like the hypothetical Leinster win over Toulouse. They like to slow everything down and control it at their own pace. But they're an absolute basket case when things don't go their way.
Yeah, and as soon as they're behind, they're in all kinds of trouble.
Indeed, and if they don't, like, it's plan A smash, plan B smash, plan C smash kind of stuff.
Death by a million carries has become the mantra.
Yes,
from co-commentary,
which came immediately before knock on.
Yes,
and then indeed, and they got beaten by Gloucester, who of all the sides in this pool are my favourite side in this pool.
Yeah, they're pretty. They're
pretty. They're fun. They attack with a ruthless energy.
I've loved Cipriani this season, but it feels like he's absolutely getting lambasted by either injury or like the red card as well. But it's just like
not to mention the arrest pre-season.
But that was pre-season. But I'm looking at the season as far as that, like he was well in contention, certainly in my mind, to get that into that England team for.
Well, he's injured now.
November, but now he's injured. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, as much as I love Gloucester, and I think they are in my mind, because Munster are good, but Gloucester could have so beaten them. They're a smarter team than they get given credit for. They have a lot of very good players. They move the ball quickly. They score flash tries. They're quite organised. Johan Ackerman is a skilled coach.
Yes,
and I just really fancied them this year to go places, but they're ravaged. They're just like, and they don't have the depth. They're ravaged with injuries. Thorley, the beautiful young winger, is
amazing. One of the players of the tournament
he's one of the players of the season. He was most of his highlights come in the Premiership,
right? Yeah,
but he's been like a young Larmer. He's been just beautiful to watch. Give him any kind of space, and he's got super gas and super instincts
and a bit of physicality as well. And a bit of shrug off tackles at the waist, which is good.
And he's gone injured, not playing. Jaco Creel, probably week too soon for him to come back. That's massive in the context of their back row.
And
Sips is not going to be there either. They announced this week, and they say like he might be back, but I think we'll get an idea as to how seriously they want to take this if you see Cipriani and Jaco Creel come back in, because they're both allegedly pretty much 50-50,
right?
And they need them, to be honest.
They
have Big Ben Morgan still there. He's great.
Another should be in the England reckoning. Probably isn't for some.
He's on the fringes, but it's he's no Nathan Hughes, man.
Nathan Hughes is rubbish.
No, so listen, it's unfortunate for Gloucester. I think their full team, locked and loaded, ready to go, could absolutely beat Munster and Kingsholm, and could have beaten them perhaps in Thomond Park were it not for the Cipriani red card. And the Cipriani going down 20 minutes in at home to Exeter, in my view, cost them bigly. They really didn't respond well to it.
10.
Indeed.
It wasn't good.
The depth isn't there, and it's unfortunate because it was all coming together for them, and now it's all falling apart for them. And it doesn't look. It's
a good advertisement for how depth is what you should be paying for, and the Premiership consistently get that wrong as far as paying for a flashy 15 with a load of names. But then what happens when
Ackerman, to his credit, does rotate his squad, and this is just happenstance. They have 17 injuries last week.
That's crazy.
It's just one of those things that happens, and it's killed their season. And I don't realistically think they have a chance against Munster this week without those guys. But that said, if they want to beat Munster, attack. Let's get going.
And Munster have been a different side away from home, and it's not even depending on where they're going. Like, they've just been a shadow of themselves away from home in all competitions. And like, speaking of Exeter, who you're not mad about, like, Exeter were also beaten by Munster, who then refused to actually win the game.
And to be fair, they outplayed Exeter away from home in that game.
They did.
In England.
They did.
They outplayed them and then just refused to win that game. That's another reason why I think Exeter are pretty lucky to still be in this reckoning at all.
Yes.
They haven't played particularly well in Europe this year. After Cipriani went down, they did a job on Gloucester and Kingsholm, which is a statement.
Yeah.
Not to mention they have beaten Sarries in the Premiership in recent weeks, so they are making statements all with that same go attitude, which I think ultimately will fall short in Thomond Park regardless of what happens this
weekend.
Just stylistically they just don't match up against Munster.
Yeah, no, well, Munster are more than willing to play that game, and
probably better at it.
I mean,
you got the best scrum in Europe arguably in Munster. You got Tyburn.
They're also like Munster are a little bit more capable of width than Exeter are as well. Like Munster's backline is actually shaping into quite a nice one personnel wise that we have yet to see all
Chris
season.
Farrell's injured again.
You know,
he's gone.
Yeah, Sammy. It's all Sammy Arnold or Dan Goggin. Both are grand players, but Chris Farrell, every time he comes in, he looks class, and then he's gone again. There were 2 weeks of class Farrell, and then he's gone again. But Scannell at 12 is class. Murray back. Like, I was even just watching the highlights from the double header. A lot of their tries where they came from against Cast was through Murray in that first game. And in the second game, then they just got sucked into the wrong kind of game, and Cast were more than happy to play them at it. And they got beaten. And they got beaten.
I think there are a few concerns. I don't think that Munster are going to get punished because I don't think Gloucester have the personnel. I don't think Exeter are the right side.
They might be punished in the context of not racking up enough points to get a home quarter final, having to go away and then losing.
That aspect of things. But no, you know what? I think they're going to go WW.
Yeah,
because of Gloucester's injuries and because Exeter aren't the right team to beat them. But there have been concerns to what Munster are doing, and they sort of got away with it in terms of media criticism for that Leinster game. Like Leinster did lose the heads, and they got all the sort of criticism,
which is it's rare to see that from Leinster at all. So it's
it was compounded with that Lowe incident, which I actually don't think was symptomatic of losing the head. I just think he timed it wrong, and it happened to happen in that game of games.
Yes,
and he got sent off. But like, that game started with 2 late hits on Sexton. The Connacht game had a load of niggle in it. The Ulster game was impossible to watch, and it had loads of niggle in it. And then they had this double header against Cast, where even when they won at home with 30 points to 5, they still ended up in this boxing match. And it's every week with Munster.
They're the common denominator.
Every week they get involved in this kind of stuff. They do silly things. You and I have different opinions on Carberry at 10, but that kicking performance away in Cast is symptomatic of something that, like, he's not quite ready to lead a club to the deep stages of Europe, I don't think. And just going, like, as much as they have brilliant 8, and they really do, their scrummaging, I just can't get over how good their scrummaging is.
They have 2 front rows, both of which are class. They can replace their front row and still monster scrums.
They've fixed their second row woes in a lot of ways with Tyburn coming in, who's a very dynamic player. They have in Peter O'Mahony, one of the best jacklers on the ground and the best line-out stealer. So in terms of possession gathering, one of the great players in the world. And then obviously very solid back rows. Tommy O'Donnell came back this week. CJ Stander is obviously class,
and he has to do a bit less work now that Butt has come in as well. I've actually liked the recruitment of Butt, even though he had a shocking game the other week. But his kind of physicality is comparable to what CJ brings, which means not like if CJ's going backwards, where he does have those one game every 5 where he's just not physically there.
I don't think Butt will play though with Tommy O'Donnell back. I don't think. I think they'll play Tommy and Peter and CJ.
But I'm talking about the bench. Bench option. Will
they take CJ off though?
I don't know if they will, but it's just in terms of even if he's not there, someone else to be the go forward man, because like doing it for 80 minutes every week is not the good thing.
So as they have been for the last few seasons, they're even a little better than they were the last few seasons. They're a brilliant pack. They are going to be tough for anybody to beat. I think they're going to get a job done on Gloucester this weekend. But there are some missing links there for Munster.
Which is, that's fair enough. It's an interesting pool though, because like Cast going to be able to go over to England and win? No, I just never know with them.
To be honest, like, as much as they beat Munster, that game was there for the taking for Munster away in Cast. They're now going over to play an Exeter side who, as much as I deride them perhaps unfairly, they're efficient. They're very efficient at what they do.
Which is what is good enough to win or to come second in the Premiership most years. Just like well drilled, do the basics, be physical, and you win most of your games.
They're pretty ruthless with it. Like, they will kick to corners and score maul tries, and they'll do that all day long. Cast aren't going to be able to come away from home to Sandy Park and front up to that. They're
more than likely not.
Like, they don't even care about this competition really.
No, and they're struggling enough in the top tours as well, aren't they?
They're in 6th.
They're in where they usually are placed, ready for their end of season run.
You'll see the real Cast around April.
When they're long gone from Europe.
Yes,
but yeah, no. So that, like, in the context of the pool, it is still in Munster's control. We were just a little bit annoyed at that loss, considering the amount of kicks Carberry missed, and like the fact that they've left so many points behind in terms of like the Casts game that they possibly should have won, but the Exeter game that they definitely should have won, that's also just 2 points gone. So it's like they probably should be home and hosed already in this pool, and it should look a lot like the other pools, but it doesn't, because Munster have kind of come back and allowed the pack in, as well as the English teams taking points off each other. And it's the most bunched pool of the lot.
Munster have got a lot wrong this year, but they still have a brilliant team. Exeter themselves have got a lot wrong this year. They do have a good team. So like what we're looking at here, probably, as much as we don't like to make predictions, we like to make the easy ones, I guess. Munster are going to go to Kingsholm, I think, and win. As tough as that is, Gloucester have to play their game, and I hope that they do. And I really I wouldn't, as much as I'm Irish, I wouldn't grudge them if they actually.
I wouldn't be that surprised if Munster got blitzkrieg by a resilient Gloucester in the first half. If they're to lose that game, I think that's how it would happen.
Indeed, I just think it would be so much more likely with Cipriani and with Thorley and with Jaco Creel, but. If that isn't to be the way, Munster will probably go and see that job done, and then I would suspect Exeter might max out against Cast, and then you're looking at a showdown in Thomond Park. Probably winner takes all, because just the way the points match up, it doesn't look like a runner-up's going to go through from that group.
No, not at all.
So that's going to be a showdown at Thomond Park, where home side I would back Munster, as well as having watched Munster beat Exeter in Sandy Park, and knowing Munster's pack and knowing the way Exeter try and beat teams. I'm just thinking, go for their line out maul, and up goes O'Mahony and picks it off all day. That will happen.
So I'm putting Munster in pole position, which is where they are sitting in that pool. But it's interesting, the developments in that. Both of those games are interesting this weekend, and like obviously.
And listen, 4 great sides. In very different ways.
It's actually been a very colourful group in terms of the styles of games we've had. Like obviously the one over in Exeter was strange because of conditions and the wind, where it was one half each with the wind or not. But just stylistically they're very interesting, and they have just matched up very close to, like, in terms of calibre, very very well evenly matched, and they've taken a lot of points off each other. But Munster are the side. This is where like things like tradition, like winning traditions, are so important, and that's what Exeter have found as well, because like they're very professional, but there's always a lingering doubt in terms of when they talk about Europe, where they have to make the step up to Europe, they have to try and make it count in Europe one of these years, and it's just like there's more of a sense of belief more than expectation, whereas with Munster it's like the precedent is where we're going to get out of our pool. Is this going to be the year where we're going to get past the semi-final?
And that's
what's probably been the difference as far as that 3-point cushion they're enjoying.
And listen, the difference essentially is that game at the start of the season, the 10-all draw. As much as we hark back to that game because Munster should have won it, and for many reasons Munster should have won it. That whole second half, Exeter were lost. But in the last play, we hark back to the death by a million carries talk, which was into the wind. It was 10-all. They were picking and going under the posts in the 22, and they didn't take a drop goal. I know it's into the wind, but they should have taken a drop goal. I think I said it at the time. You take a drop goal and you win that game, and that's what winning sides do. And like, I wouldn't have such a problem with Exeter. Like, as Gareth Steenston is a fine club level player, but I think if you want to play like Exeter play, you need a superstar at 10.
And you need drop goals.
You need to be
drop
goals.
Cool key part of your scoring acumen.
You think like Dan Carter or Ronan O'Gara are going to have an issue taking that drop goal on? They're not. They're going to take it on and score it.
Keep it low, get it under the wind, straight through.
Above the blockers, over the wind. Perfect. And that's they didn't do that, and they knocked it on, and that's in essence a summary of just why they're not quite where they should be.
And I also think in summary, like, Munster's response to that was to be absolutely buoyed by the performance and loving the fact that they got the draw away from home. And I think part of, like, that's as true as that is, their short-sightedness is that, like, they should have won that game. That game was theirs. They should have won it. And it was, by the end of it then, it was Exeter's to nick, because they didn't win it, and they were lucky that the ball was dropped. So both sides, it was revealing about both sides. And I'm hopeful for Munster, because I do want them to kick on, but it'll be an interesting little point in their season should it not go their way. But that's Pool 2 anyway, which I think we should probably park now, because that's,
of course, Pool 3,
which we'll get up now,
is
Yes, Sarries, Glasgow, Cardiff and Leon on 18, 14, 4 and 0 points respectively. So yes, in the context of my contenders list, there are only 2 in this group, and they are Sarries and Glasgow.
Yes.
Cardiff are a lovely team. I actually think they're like what you were talking about, Gloucester. I think Cardiff are a surprisingly competent outfit as well, and don't normally get the credit for that. Sure, even some of the tries they scored against Sarries were great. They were in a game there, and they were 18 all at like 45 minutes, and then threw an intercept try, and then the floodgates opened.
They're all techers. You know, all techers. That's their first priority every time. So they've got that whole Kiwi like 3/4 line, 10, 12, 13. I know Anscombe is Welsh, but they're all Kiwis, and that's how they play the game. And it's all about lovely tries. They scored that Challenge Cup final last year. That was something else.
It was a class game.
And they're full of those class games. But Glasgow mounted the won against them and mounted the Pro 14 challenge. And have since derailed since the last Challenge Cup game, since they had that double header against Leon, where they
Champions Cup game.
What did I say?
Challenge.
Oh, sorry. Champions Cup game, where they won the double header against Leon unconvincingly, but they did the job. They've now lost home and away to Edinburgh, and been firmly booted. And you are not the best team in Scotland, so say Edinburgh. And fair enough, they got beat thoroughly and hollowly out the gate, home and away. And just last week went and lost to Benetton away from home.
They did.
They're exposing some weaknesses that I saw earlier in the season. The halfback combination of Ali Price and Hastings is pretty poor, like for a side that wants to contend in anything.
They also they're even more than in seasons gone by. They're just whipping it wide with reckless abandonment, because they just don't back their forwards to get the job done.
Outside of the man who deserves the great shout out is Loosehead Ollie Keble, who's a monster who gets through a load of work, who I love watching play. But other than that, their pack just don't. Even Johnny Gray, they just don't make enough plays. They routinely get beaten up. That's sort of what happened to them, I think, against Saracens, and certainly happened to them home and away against Edinburgh.
Silver linings: when those 2 Horn brothers are on the pitch, they're normally good for these great little chip and chase tries.
That's true. No, listen, they got tries for days. They got Stewie Hogg and Tommy Seymour. And listen, when they get on a roll, they can score. That's how they beat Cardiff. I mean, they just outplayed them, and they still have that in them, we assume. But form-wise, they're off a cliff, and they got to beat Cardiff this week. Otherwise, I think they're probably done.
If they don't, that probably will be them done. Can they go to Sarries and get a result?
No, it doesn't look likely. The Saracens themselves have had a couple of stumbling blocks recently, but they're actually rotating their squad.
I think Glasgow were one of the big losers from that storm that I was talking about on the second weekend of those double headers, because they didn't get their bonus point in Kingsholm against Leon, and that was
in Kingsholm.
No, not in Kingsholm.
In Leon.
In Scotland.
Sorry, 21-10 that game was.
And in the first half it looked all set, felt like Leon not at the races, Glasgow much better, but then the heavens did open and they just couldn't string it together enough to get the bonus point, and that's left them in a pretty precarious position as far as even second place qualifications concerned, and where they're going to have to go. Like in the context of their group, the Sarries kind of won that was it the first weekend? When they went up to Scotstoun, got the job done against them in impressive fashion, and
Sarries to me look like a side that's actually consciously making an effort to time their season right. They went on such a run early doors, and now they're sort of resting a Toji a bit and sort of trying to ease Billy V back and just trying to
get all their weapons
trying to get everything in order, making sure that things don't derail April time. And fair enough, but for me they will. I still have such respect for them. I have such respect for Mark McCall. I have such respect for Owen Farrell and Alex Good and Brad. But I think, as you all know at this stage, I think that's what the English team should be based on. Everything that Saracens do, and I just would back them to do Glasgow when push comes to shove. So Glasgow, you got to be thinking, and I actually don't know the connotations of this. There are nerdier people than I who are looking at the connotations with such gusto. It's where rugby and maths collide in such a way that anyone who loves both just goes head first into it. But it for me, it's just I never really look at the connotations that much. I'm too busy looking at the games. But Glasgow have to be, I think, as much as it's loser talk, I don't like loser talk usually, but I'm just looking at Glasgow losing all the time and think maybe they need to just have a realistic look at themselves and think, are we going to get even a point out of that Saracens game? Maybe we should be thinking about, is 18 points, a win against Cardiff at home, going to be enough, or do we need 4 tries? And do we need to start kicking corners immediately? But first port of call has to be win that game, because they haven't been winning any games since that game against Lyon in the wind.
So it's an interesting place for them. They are still in contention, which last year they were unlucky. They were a better team last year, but they were in the pool of death and they were gone by Christmas, and it was unfortunate, because timing wise you felt like that was maybe the year they could have done something in the knockout stages. But now they've been shorn of their fame.
You know what? They just haven't got a forward pack to be anywhere near considering doing something in the knockout stages against the real big guns. Even Munster, they just haven't got a forward pack that can cope with what the big teams bring. Leinster, Munster, Racing, and Toulouse even, and of course Saracens. They just haven't got a forward pack that can compete. And like, their backline is very pretty, and Stuart Hogg certainly in his time was one of the best 15s in the world, and still capable of doing that. But
it's just not enough.
It adds up to some nice tries in a losing effort most of the time.
And occasionally those nice tries rack up enough of a score to win the game, and that's great.
They never replaced. They were never a better side than the side that won the Pro 14. They lost Leone Nakarawa and just never filled that hole with a baller of a player. Well, meanwhile Edinburgh have just been getting, their forward pack have just been getting more and more skilled and more physical, and have naturally overtaken them.
And it's been a slow enough progression, but it's kind of sad enough to see, because like there's only a few. It feels like pale imitations of the Glasgow of old. Even like looking at Hastings in the 10 channel, he kind of looks a little like Finn sometimes when he's running the ball, but it's like too many floaty pass. Those last few weeks they're passing off the left hand. This has become a fucking theme of the season that has really annoyed me ever since we were watching that Rugby Tonight, the BT show, where they had Lima Subawanga.
That's right.
And I've been giving out about Lima Subawanga mainly because I actually enjoyed Sips at Wasps, enjoyed what Wasps were doing when Sips was there. Then they lost and brought in Lima Subawanga, who we've been used to watching from Super Rugby as well. Kind of don't like his floaty crossfield kicks that look good while they're in the air, and then they just stay in the air and get picked off. Any of this. But we also just noticed he's like, when we played them in the 42-7 win that Leinster had in the first game of the season. 52-7 win, sorry. 42 was the Bath one. 52-7 win that we had. He threw a few hasty passes off the left into touch in the RDS. Then it was only a week later that he came into the BT studio, and he had to. They were challenging him to like hit Ben Kay across the studio, and he lazily threw it off the left and threw it over his shoulder. He had to go, and so one of the guys in the crowd caught it, and it was like, Jesus Christ, this is an All Black who's been paid to come across the world and play Premiership Rugby, and it's like, you can't pass off the left. Same thing's been happening in Glasgow. They do whip their passes very quickly, but like, they've been throwing intercepts or loose passes into touch, which was how one of the games against Edinburgh ended, with a pathetic pass into touch that also had 2 intercepts off the left hand as well. We're just seeing that a lot this season in terms of spotting trends. Like, why are tens not being able to pass off the left hand?
It's a thing when you notice it, you can't miss it. Like, some players are worse, which is just worse when they're passing to their right hand side than when they're passing to their left hand side. And it is noticeable with some players more than others. Glasgow do need to try and throw those passes, those 50-50s. They need to rack up tries. It is how they win games. They need to run teams around,
which
get
does leave you susceptible to some of those low lights as well as the highlights.
Indeed. But you're right that there is a theme of that.
It's been shocking this year, and I'm just like, how for a professional 10 at all?
It's like you see those soccer players who always try and get it, or even GA players, GA players who try and get it onto their right foot the whole time, and like, you can see the defender is giving them an easy shot with their left foot, and they just won't take it because they can't, and they're like, you're pro. You're a pro. Come on, do it.
Take that on. Well, I suppose this is probably the luxury of being a Leinster fan, where you're just knowing that if you threw a pass like that, you're out of the academy. You're already dropped. You're gone. And it's like, that's a great luxury to have, but also at the same time, it's like, how can you get as far as that without being able to flick a pass over the left?
I don't know.
Pet peeves of mine. There will be a list of them, and they're gonna keep recurring in this podcast. But that's definitely been one I've noticed this season. And Lima Subawanga, and also Scott Hastings or not Scott Hastings, isn't it?
It is Scott.
Scott.
It is Scott Hastings.
Sorry, Adams was dad.
No. It's Adam Hastings.
It's Adam Hastings. Scott was his dad. Yeah, that's why I knew I was wrong. But yes, Adam Hastings has been guilty of a few of those flicky passes, and he just as well. Their pack, is thoroughly depleted. So in the context of that pool, it is just going to be Sarries marching on, and likely with top seeding in the context of the whole tournament.
Top seeding or second seeding,
depending on behind Racing.
Who will pivot to now on Pool 4.
Pool 4 and Racing and Ulster are the two contenders in that one. On 19 points for Racing, which is the tournament high as it stands. They're currently sitting on top. And Ulster on 14, which is a very good return after back-to-back wins over
stand up
Scarlet. Yes,
for the Ulster men.
Indeed.
They've done well.
They've done really well. Scarlets, conversely, have done abysmally again.
That's one of the things that I've sort of noticed is like they did get the job done impressively against Scarlets, and have entered a club that is just growing and growing of teams who get the job done against Scarlets. Whatever has gone on over there this year in West Wales, they're just losing all the games, and so it's hard. It's still hard to gauge where Ulster are at. We know they have quick tries in them. We know they have brilliant attacking players. Addison is a real find. McCluskey on his day is very good. Stockdale is a try scoring machine. This young fullback they have, who's Michael Lowry. He's very good and very quick. Billy Burns has grown into his own every game. He stuttered a little this year.
Ian Henderson steps up a lot in his Ulster jersey.
This
is why, conversely, compared to Glasgow, we were just talking about, they're not found wanting to the same extent in the physical exchanges, but sometimes they're found wanting the physical exchanges.
Well, that's what I was getting to. Their try scoring ability is superb. But in other areas of the field, they really need massive performances. It's worry best. Ian Henderson and Marcel Coetzee, the three test players in there that you really would want to be leaning on. I mean, you're going to look to Best and Coetzee for big turnovers, look to Henderson for big momentum moments. What happened to them in the U Arena was they just got minced up front. Scrum time,
sometimes at line-out time,
in the contact. And the other things, for all of the brilliance of them going forward, I have suspicions about the defensive capabilities of Cooney, Burns, McCluskey, Addison, Stockdale, all of them. First up tackling. It's gonna to win this, even though it's at home in the Kingspan, to win this game is going to require them to be 100% on their game with ball in hand and fluster them like that, and then you would say a massive defensive shift, but I just don't think that's the way they want to play that game. They're going to need to turn over the ball, make it slow and horrible at breakdown, and then when they get the ball, if it's not on, we're going deep, we're pegging them back, we're making Racing exit, making them do silly Finn things. You'd like to see a nice juicy Finn floaty pass off the left get picked off by Stockdale.
Ideal world.
That'll be a nice picture for Ulster. But in terms of individual,
just some proactive defending, because I feel
it's the only way to do it.
But a lot of times they're not. A lot of times they're soaked tackling, particularly Addison, like you're saying. He's
very drifty.
He's had a great season ball in hand, and he's impeccable ball in hand. I love watching him. He glides around, he plays well at 13, 14, 15, anywhere. He can do that ball in hand, but particularly in the 13 channel, you want someone shooting up and hitting. And every tackle he seems to make is a soak tackle, so even if he pushes forward, he ends up retreating 2 or 3 yards in that contact, sometimes slipping off. Then McCluskey, for such a big guy,
doesn't use his weight
in defence at all, be it rucking, be it smashing.
He's upright, he's very upright, tries to hold people up and then eats yards. And again, against these Racing boys,
you'd want to see some Robbie Henshawing closing down the distance immediately and wrapping around the ball, preventing the offload and ragdolling them backwards is kind of what you need to be seeing.
Absolutely. And it's going to be it's going to be matchup wise, looking at them, the players that Racing have, they have a very good scrum.
In terms of that,
you got guys like Lammer. What's your man's name in the back row?
Lamera.
No, Lammer's the centre. I can't.
No. If their centres are Chavancy and Vamahina.
Yeah, but Remy Lammer is at Clermont. I can't remember.
Oh, sorry, Lammer is. Yes.
It's begins with an L.
Lapondry. No.
Laurent or something. Excuse me. He's a very good player.
I can picture him now.
What a great. You know what? I'll look it up.
Yeah.
He's one of the classy back rowers from France. Who's a brilliant player. You got Donica Ryan, Leonie Nakarawa in the second.
Laurie.
It is Laurie.
Yeah.
They're like proper brilliant test level players all dotted through that pack, and then a back line that when it heats up gets really hot. Finn Russell gets a lot of stick for being flary, and he does throw some loose passes. Personally, I think he's a brilliant 10. Like old school class. He makes backlines purr. I'm loving defense.
They look great off line out and scrum strike plays. They're great width. Their wingers are hugging the touchline. They've Juan Imhoff, who just looks dangerous. Bagging tries left, right, and centre. Zebo looking like he's enjoying his time with those potent weapons outside him, and
running good tracking runs, bagging some good tries.
And I think the linkman who gets underappreciated the whole time, he actually did for us in terms of our go forward without ball in hand is Chavonsi at 12, and he's like a classier operator than either of those two Ulster centres. He's really, really good. And so like he'll be the danger as far as that, like being he as a link man or as a smashing player off the ball. There's
all kinds of racing weapons. Ulster, like you got to be hoping for some smart play from Cooney and Billy Burns. It's not really Stockdale's. The up and under isn't really Stockdale's game.
No, he's not.
I would like to see, because you got Zebo potentially at fullback in the backfield doing silly Zebo things, getting, like, as much as we love Zebo, getting things wrong sometimes defensively. Like kick, like when you resolve to kick, it shouldn't just automatically be right, we'll exit with box kicks, we'll throw some bombs up. It needs to be smarter than that. And Ulster, for me, they are a team that are very good with ball in hand, should be looking to exit with ball in hand a little bit, going from side of the pitch to side of the pitch to probe, and then isolate the space.
If they have any confidence about winning collisions, they can do that. But like
the space, man. Go whip it to the left hand side. Get Stockdale's hands on the ball early. If you catch it on your right hand side, whip it across the pitch. Go back to the pitch. Against most defenses, that's going to give you yards when you're in your own half anyway. And then thereafter, you got to lean on the vision of Billy Burns at 10, who is growing into his role. It's going to be a big day for him to actually pick out where they're weak in the backfield and find grass and go deep with the boot and find touch preferably, and then attack them from there.
Excuse us, little message,
phone notification. Go back into the corner, try and get lineouts and set plays and force Racing to exit. That's the kind of thing you want to be looking for Ulster. And then when there is space to attack in the opposition half, to do so ruthlessly, to get tries on the board before Racing do, to avoid at all costs knock-ons and scrums,
which points will come from
points will come.
Racing.
Yes,
as we saw in the Euro.
Keep not quite in a Toulouse way, because Toulouse obviously have more methods of winning against Leinster. It's more of a balanced game, but just keep that ball alive. Back yourself to score tries, because Racing do leak tries. They aren't defensively the best team in Europe. They, like, as good as Chavonsi is, they can be got outside. And Messers, like, as much as we derided Stockdale and Addison and McCluskey, they can be bloody brilliant with ball in hand, and that's what you need. That's what you want to see. You want to see offloads, you want to see tracking runs, you want to see sharpness, some good set plays, and always in the wide channels. Get outside Racing, move them around, because they are big boys, and you need to tire them out. So I want to see Ulster going from left side of the pitch to the right side of the pitch to the left side of the pitch, and
avoiding those close collision contacts where they just won't win them.
Only Ian Anderson is allowed to do that.
Well, yes,
that's
the one out runners, which is a prevailing force in most Irish teams, and it just.
But to be fair to Ulster, they can actually be quite lateral sometimes. But I would almost be okay with seeing them do that. And then obviously back in your three big players, your test players in your pack, to primarily make steals, but also front up in those contacts.
Big day for Rory West. The darts need to be accurate. Physicality needs to be there. He's had a few.
I'd like to see a few poaches as well.
I really want that back in his game. He's shown signs of it in the last few weeks. He's provided one or two more, but it used to be like a very potent thing. He used to do one or two. Like, he'd be in slowing up ball, if not winning ball, in most breakdowns.
It's gonna be it's a massive task. It is at home in the Kingspan Stadium. They're gonna have a big crowd wanting them to win. Certainly
they should wear their red top.
They will wear their red top because Racing will wear their blue and white thingy, so they will be wearing their red top. And Ulster do much better. When they
play much better in the red
top. They look more. They look like they have a bit more balls about them in the red top.
Yeah.
And no, so absolutely they should be out in the red top and given it absolute socks. They're going to have the crowd with them. They're actually for once riding a momentum wave.
Well, they're also it's post Christmas, and this is a consequential game that they could do with winning, which is like rare enough. Most of the time,
especially
it's just
Europe.
in Europe. So most of the time, it's just we'd like to win it though because we're at home and it's good for our fans. And like Irish teams do tend to put it because there's obviously no relegation in the Pro 14, so it's like it's easier for a Pro 14 team to, even if they're out of it and it's a dead rubber, to still chuck everything at it and make a result. They tend to actually be worse fixtures if you're in contention but not quite there, and you have to face a Pro 14 team. That's worse than having to face a Premiership or a Top 14 team at this point, because usually they'll just throw the seconds or reserves out at you and not really bother. But this is an unusual place for Ulster to be after earning it with great performances back to back against Scarlets, which was like just brilliant for them, because like the last few seasons it's been a matter of like, if not mathematically out, but everyone has a sense of being
and listen,
out at Christmas.
I think they're a team that is good enough. Like they're for the record, I'm sure if we read out the pool points, they're on 14 points. So even if they don't win this weekend, they're probably going to have a chance to go and qualify. I think they're a team that truly is good enough to go to a quarterfinal. They probably do belong in the top 8 in Europe this year. They are riding a bit of a momentum wave. I know they stuttered a bit in the derbies, as they often do, but they rotated their squad, which was refreshing to see as well. And their A team is in it. Their fans are going to be geared up. They're actually happy. There seems to be a positive atmosphere about them this year. They can deliver, and they belong probably in the top 8, be they doing it this week or next. There's the problem this week is that Racing, the pieces of Racing's team coming together are so good now, especially in Europe. I mean, they have stuttered a bit in domestically, so there are chances to score tries, but just the way the two teams match up, Ulster are probably just too weak in certain areas, primarily the scrum. They're just it's just
that's been there for so long, and they just haven't solved that problem. And like, to be fair, it's Marty Moore in there now this year, and it's still the same issue, and it's like, I just don't know what to do to remedy that. Like, Ian Henderson's a fine scrummager. You see that in an Ireland jersey. He's a powerful man.
There's
the engine
no issue with the engine
just
room. I don't think
technicalities in the front row
That's
have always
like,
been bad in terms of just the bind.
You never actually see a solid Ulster scrum, perhaps full stop there, but you never see an Ulster scrum where it's like all props are perfectly engaged together, and then just the power comes in from behind, which is actually how Racing dominate a lot of their scrums. Very often when Ulster scrum is going backwards, there's some kind of mad shit going on.
One person's arm is up or head is up or down, and it's like someone's getting something wrong. If not multiple people,
often multiple people, and so it's that's the big task for them. But they're in it. They're going to go for it. I wish them all the best luck. To my,
I'm not hugely confident of them getting.
No, if I was to tip aside, I would tip Racing to win it.
But I hope it'll be a hell of a game. I actually think it will be a hell of a game, because I think they will show something in the King's
score some tries.
And I also think that ask some questions of Racing, which they've yet to really be asked in this tournament.
And yet, the Racing aren't top of the top couture. They're about 6th or something. They're like, they're not all that. They take off days. As good as Finn Russell is and Zebo is, they have
mistakes. Bad as well. There's good bad
they make
in
mistakes.
That back line.
They're not defensively as good as Chavonsi is. They're not defensively a rock at all. So there are tries to be got. So attack them, and it's a good early test for them if they really are, in it to win it. In it to win it is the way to put it.
But as it stands, they're at the top. But I suppose that's a good way to pivot into Pool 5, which is actually my favourite pool of them all at the moment, just because it looks so class. Because Edinburgh are sitting pretty at top of it. It's like, no way. 15 points for Edinburgh after 4 games. Who'd have thunk that? And only 11 for Montpellier, the big bag of money, loads of money. That's technically actually a rugby team as well. I understand. But yes, Montpellier on 11 points, and then the only other technical contenders that I have in there on the low end of 8 points is Newcastle, and then below the contenders of that pool is Toulon. The mighty Toulon on 6 points.
Enjoy it while it lasts, is what I was saying to you before the show.
Before they buy a load of stuff post
World Cup shopping spree is going to be a real thing.
It's true. But they've got their just desserts, and they are like up against their double header against Montpellier, where they both knocked lumps out of each other home and away.
Neither of them got an away point, which
exactly.
is very French of them.
It is very French altogether, indeed. Whereas Edinburgh did the job home and away against Newcastle in very impressive fashion. In what was, we were pitching as like a good level for both of these teams, and it was Cockrell and Dean Richards, the coaching staff on both sides, and it's just like up and coming sides, both from different leagues, and Edinburgh just showed more and had more. They've
come into their own. I mean, their pack is very good. They've got
a
lot of proper test players. I mean, you're talking about the front row that has shored up the Scottish scrum nationally. You know, McAnally in there is brilliant. Nell also is a fantastic scrummager. Then Gilchrist in the second row and Toulis are very mobile players, very good,
very physical. They work as well. They just get through a shift anytime they take the field.
Totally.
And that allows for their talisman in the back line as well. You have Mata just throwing absolute
back row, and not to mention Hamish Watson. You know, it's
the another workhorse who's enabling, and
but
just
like brilliant jackler as well. And then Mata obviously was the star against France for Fiji, and he's been just tearing it up this season all along.
That's an international caliber pack. It's great.
It's a superb pack. It's and you know, then outside that everything is a little more functional, but quite settled. You know, they have the same guys in there.
They have their key difference maker has been, I think, is having Blair Kinghorn out there, so they just have access to the wide channels sometimes now, so they can actually give a guy a ball who can take it himself or link up, and it just means even with their functionary players, more functionary certainly in the back line, they can still reach the wide channels. They can score those tries, and they have done.
They have those tries in them. Darcy Graham again is electric. They're also defensively, they put in shifts. All of that back line, and they are very settled as a side. They're not, as Gloucester have been, ravaged with injury. They have their team. So absolutely, they're going to be well capable of going to Toulon and getting a win. Well capable. They did a job on Newcastle. You know, put to shame the sort of musings that I had, I suppose, not we, I was going to say we, that I had on Newcastle potentially making a home final and going on a run of it, but no, they just out rugbyed them. And even that weird prop situation in that first game, but then they went and won in Newcastle anyway.
That was strange actually.
It was very strange. We won't elaborate.
Look up the video.
But the Edinburgh did a job on them rugby wise. They have a brilliant pack. They're going to play a Toulon team whose confidence levels must have just hit the floor. It's a good, as you were saying pre-show, it's a good benchmark for them.
It is, same way that this Newcastle doubleheader was kind of good timing for them to go home and away against them. This is a good step up again, because that, like, we know that going to Toulon is no easy place to go. Even if Toulon are in the state that they're in, they're going to have to go through that pre-match kind of pageantry, and there's going to be noise, and it's going to be a very different atmosphere, certainly to Murrayfield, where they're used to playing. They do have that intangible advantage in that, like, no one likes going to Murrayfield, and they still have a chance next week to qualify in Murrayfield, which is class. But they still should be eyeballing this fixture against Toulon with, like, they're a better rugby team than them at the moment. They are, and they should, and that's exactly what the message will be. I feel as well. It'll just be like, lads, look, I know it's Toulon. I know they have stars in their jersey. I know all this, but we should go there and win.
I think you know, Richard Cockrell deals in a little less parliamentary language than that, but I think the message will be one of aggression, certainly.
Going over there to take it to
Did I say Dean Richards? Richard Cockrell.
Yes. No, I think he did say Cockrell.
Oh, sorry. So it's going to be it's absolutely, you think early doors in that game, get on top in the pack. Your scrum is not going to have an issue standing up to those guys. It genuinely isn't. Peg them back in the corners, get some tries on the board as they're giving away like candy over there. They're going to be rocked confidence wise too long. If Edinburgh get a couple of scores in early, they will be rocked confidence wise, and there isn't a team in Europe right now that responds worse to being rocked confidence wise than Toulon.
That's probably
they're all over the shop. They're out of shape. They're physically, I mean, and they're just like, they're very, very beatable. And Edinburgh, like, you cannot do this going to France away thing, we get a losing point, because as haphazard as Montpellier's season has been so far, they actually on paper have a team that can win, and some guys with some genuine motivation to start playing rugby. So you got to be careful. Like you cannot. I don't think they should be leaning, especially just in the position they are now,
on the Murrayfield.
No,
I'm not to suggest that. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's not. I don't think that's what you're saying. But I think that it's conceivable that they go in with that mindset. I mean, what's the group again? They're on 15 points. Montpellier are 4 points behind them. So Montpellier, like Edinburgh, they want to be winning that game. But if they get a losing bonus point, Montpellier could well get 5 against Newcastle. As much as Montpellier, to be fair, they have more home losses than you'd ever see from a French team this year. Whatever's going on over there, I mean, all I'm saying about them is that they're dangerous. They got the Manny Nadolo back, who's unreal.
It's that Galacticos thing. You can't really make any predictions for it because you're reading a team on paper that should be class, and yet we've played Montpellier twice in the last 2 years, and they've consistently come to the RDS and been, to be fair, rubbish.
That Montpellier looked more organised in that era than they looked this year. I haven't watched enough of them this year to comment fully on what's going on. Like I didn't see last week Nadolo was playing, and yet they lost at home to Lyon. So it's just strange times. They have Jan Serpentine. Like on paper, there's a lot of good players around there. Even Johan Hulsen is a superb player.
Still there as well.
Pinar wasn't playing last week anyway.
Stein is still there.
Francois Stein at fullback. You know, they have a lot of good players and a lot of potential. Certainly not someone you'd be comfortable with giving a chance in Murrayfield.
No. That
said, if I was forced to make a prediction, I would go for Edinburgh, even in
Murrayfield,
that game.
I would too,
because they look organised, they look good. They're the only side out of there that look like a well-coached rugby team, and you just the story of that.
And that's been the case in domestic comp as well. They've been showing that consistently, more so than it's hard to get a gauge on where Montpellier are because and same is true.
The game against Toulon is interesting, perhaps only in the capacity of we just haven't seen Edinburgh phased yet. We've seen them beaten a few times, but we haven't seen them phased properly, like intimidated by an occasion. That's just the Richard Cockrell factor.
I think so.
He just gets teams like that.
They look more like Leicester than Leicester do.
Totally.
Like they look like a Leicester Tigers outfit that's organised, very physical. The pack's undeniably good. And they don't.
And that Leicester team went everywhere and performed always. They won trophies because of it. They had that rock solid.
The first team to do Munster in Thomond Park famously, and it's he's got pedigree for exactly that. He's got precedent on this. And Edinburgh, I think, are a club culture that. It allows it's perfect because like even in years gone by when Edinburgh were rubbish, I can recall like I was in Murrayfield in one instance where Leinster were knocked out in a pool where we really could have done with winning. I think we were in a pool with Leicester and Toulouse and we lost in Edinburgh.
Yes,
just right. No. But like they were always difficult to play. They do love making teams make mistakes and being physical and in their face. That seems to be somewhere in their DNA where Glasgow would be. Certainly in the more modern iteration of Glasgow are more prone to throwing it around. So this kind of version of Edinburgh, it suits them, and they've now got personnel to match it, and they've plugged a few holes. Things like the back line. There's now a more competent, well-drilled air to it.
It's a settled 15. They're rocking high on confidence. They've just gone and proven that they're the best team in Scotland. They are top of their group. They just have no business being at all intimidated by this trip to Toulon, and I don't think they will. They have a chance, the way they got to look at it, they have a chance to book their quarterfinal this week, and then next week
get a home, make sure it's at Murrayfield. And if at Murrayfield, they're favourites against most people.
Against most teams. Certainly teams that will be second. As long as they don't get Toulouse or Leinster.
Yes. Those are the danger bogey ones for anyone. But
certainly they'd like. For me, they look a team that could genuinely go places this year. If you wanted to talk back in that Newcastle video that we did, I was talking about teams can make a run to the final.
It's Edinburgh by the look.
It could absolutely be Edinburgh because they're a functional rugby team. And one of my mantras early doors, like when looking at the conditions for who's going to win a game, there's all these inhuman factors, like it's in France, Toulon of pedigree, Pilou, and all of that. And then there's which of these two teams is a better rugby team. And if in doubt, I always go for the rugby team, the better rugby team, when I'm making a prediction. If I have to make a prediction,
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think more often than not that's true. But I think other times historical precedent can dictate.
There's obviously exceptions to everything, but I think
what
generally
is so interesting about this game. Despite the fact that Toulon have offered nothing interesting so far, this is a very interesting game. Because it's just where are Edinburgh at? What are they going to present this season? Are they going to go towards a semi-final and beyond potentially? they're in it, and they're at like 15 points after 4 games. It's brilliant.
This is the first of a series of progressively tougher tests in the new year for them, I would say, and it's important, perhaps. Like it's not necessarily necessary that they, which makes sense.
Yes,
it's not necessarily necessary that they actually do go and win. They could probably get away with a losing bonus point and a win against Montpellier. They might even get a home quarter final out of it.
In the context, but it's a good plotting a campaign towards a victory.
It's a good little test for them, as you say, going away to France, and it would be the right result.
Yes, it would. It would be good due justice for Toulon in a certain way. It would be nice, cathartic
and
kind of result.
Step for it. It would rock their confidence to go there and lose, given how Toulon have been. And their confidence is sky high. But that said, sort of hinging towards the negative for no good reason. I expect class things. If you're a neutral, that's a good game to watch.
For
you're
sure.
Gonna get to see, and you know why? Because you're going to get to see all the stars. You're going to get to see Mata. You're going to get to see Hamish Watson. You're going to get to see Stuart McAnally in the wide channels. You're going to get to see a bit of Blair Kinghorn from counter attack. Darcy Graham when he gets a bit of space. I mean, go to Toulon this week and you might actually see some star quality.
Yes, no, that's very, very much true. And as for the other fixture, Montpellier and the Falcons.
Yeah, it's I think. Well, no, you know what it is like I haven't really been watching Montpellier. I watched them have a loss a few weeks ago, and now having seen that Nadolo's back this week, I was like excited to see what happened, and they lost at home to Lyon. So I don't know what's going on over there, other than they just seem to be repeatedly losing games, which is not the sign of a good team.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's actually
it's
one of those key things you can look out for.
Yes,
if you're looking to spot a good team.
Yeah,
look away
a load of losses.
Loads of L's in that column is not really the signs you want to be seeing.
No.
So I don't know. Newcastle do seem well drilled as well. It's questionable how motivated they are, but they can theoretically reach 18 points still because they're on 8. So
the dream lives. The dream lives.
Still alive
the
for
home
them.
final. They've got it's gonna be a massive shift required to go to France for them particularly. My suspicion, just looking at the teams, that Montpellier can surely do for them. But Montpellier haven't done for many teams, so Newcastle should go with a bit of flair and a bit of gusto. Yeah,
well, they have to throw everything out at it as well. Like they've got to be thinking a 10-point return is what's going to see them through, and nothing short of that will. So at that, they have to kind of, much as their conservatism is probably a hallmark of some of their success in recent times.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I think they're probably out of it ahead of these last 2 games. I think
these are ones where the permutations of content you were talking about, like they're still in the mix technically.
The mathematicians may not think so, but I think that game was much more of a dead rubber.
Certainly, I would. If are they on at the same time? I'm not sure, but
no, they're not this weekend.
They're not. It's not the juicy fixture of
of
that pool.
But you know what? I think I should make a due effort to watch it just to see what Montpellier are up to. Because I haven't kept track of them this year, and they were a pet team of mine.
A couple of years ago. Like Manny Nadolo, which is hard not to like Manny Nadolo. We are big fans of this podcast
as well.
I do like Cruden as well, and it's bonkers to be honest. They spend so much money and they just can't string it together.
In fact, if it was Toulon who had that going wrong for them, we'd just be laughing. But for some reason, we seem to forgive Montpellier for it. So actually, I should be up for Newcastle, but it remains to be seen if anything interesting will come from that game.
What I'm really up for is Edinburgh.
Yeah, it looks
to do it.
Edinburgh
and for all the results to fall into play. Like a draw would suit me very well in that game. Montpellier, Newcastle, and then Edinburgh sneak a win over in Toulon even, and that'd be perfect. The Pro 14 go marching on. And after all these years of teams like Scarlets and Ospreys flattering to deceive in this comp, could you imagine?
Let's have Edinburgh not do that.
Yeah, Edinburgh be the ones to go on. Edinburgh have done semi-finals before as well.
A semi-final, I believe.
A semi-final was
against Ulster.
Yeah. That was 2012.
Yes, you played Ulster in the All-Irish final in Twickenham.
Yes.
It was good. Yeah, it was fun. So anyway, just to wrap up the show now, we're just looking at the contenders as they stand. In terms of what we're actually likely to see in the quarterfinals. You got Racing are top billing in terms of points. Saracens then are second billing in terms of points. Toulouse then are third billing. And then Leinster are technically fourth billing, but Edinburgh are the first team, so they're fourth billing. Then Munster would be fifth billing. And then it would be Leinster, Glasgow and Ulster going through as of this moment. which would leave you with Racing against, who's the bottom side? Ulster. Racing against Ulster, Saracens against Glasgow, Toulouse against
Leinster as it stands.
That's right. And then Munster away from home against the Edinburgh. Munster be away in Murrayfield as of right now.
Right.
And then the potential for Exeter obviously to sneak in there, for Montpellier if they want to, get the finger out and get going. Even Cast seems unlikely to go and win. Exeter could do it, and obviously Gloucester and Newcastle if they could pull off points.
No, Munster wouldn't be away because they're first in their group.
And how many pools are there?
5. Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what getting only 12 points is concerned.
Exactly. So they'll be away in Murrayfield.
Yeah. No fun.
No fun indeed.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like at the moment. There's a lot of potentially good fixtures.
Yeah.
Those are the other teams in it: Newcastle, Gloucester, Exeter, Cast, Montpellier. And we're down to that many, 8 plus
8 points.
13 sides perhaps still in it.
Yes.
Out of the 20. So that's good going.
Yeah. It's a generous enough estimate. I'm thinking those single figure teams would be doing very well to get out. Cast on 9.
No, to be fair, plausible. Exeter could easily.
Yeah. Exeter and Gloucester are both on 8.
Yeah, they're definitely conceivably in it. Exeter could go top this week.
Yeah. True.
And so too could Gloucester, but they would need to resurrect their boys.
Yeah.
That said, I think we should wrap up the show.
Yeah. Are we done?
I think we're good.
We were it's an hour and a half. Yeah, we will wrap it up. We do still have a series to continue on. We're just going to, at some point, probably towards the tail end of some of the podcasts to come, just continue breaking down where each international team is standing, going into this calendar year with the mind towards the World Cup. We broke down a few in the last podcast,
we'll start to upload.
We're going to upload those single videos, and then hopefully next podcast we'll break down a couple of more. I think we were saying probably the All Blacks and Argentina, just to kind of get the Rugby Championship teams out of the way.
We went through in the last show. We went through South Africa and Australia, and I think England as well.
Yeah, and
do Ireland. Yes, we did Ireland as well as that. Yeah.
So we'll try.
And then we're also going to do one on the tier 2 nations as well, and see where all of they are.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good thing to get to. Unfortunately, this week we have not got the time.
No. This week was all about European rugby, as it should be, really, because it's back. So it's this weekend. We're going to be in the RDS come Saturday, shouting, screaming blue murder at Leinster and Toulouse and waving our blue flags, fire hazards and all as they may be.
Yes,
we'll be waving them. And so we'll probably...
It's become a lazy identity of our club. It's just a nice way to make colour in the air.
It's good.
We just all wave
I like
the flags.
It looks good. Blue flags. It's better than up in Ulster where they have to be waving white flags before they kick off. That's no fun. But all banter and joking aside, we will wrap up for this one. This was number 36?
Yeah,
we're keeping them going.
We're back in action, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right,
thanks. Take care, guys.
Bye. Cool.
Right.
All right.
I'm going to throw a ball.
You have to use your Leinster ball this time.
Little flicky thing.
No. Wild.
It's too light, that thing.
He
He actually hit it, but didn't knock it over.
Yeah.
That's
it was a bit left.
I don't know if we give you that. That's a weak man's throw.
As opposed to just inaccurate.
Yeah. You gotta just fire it.